Hello. I hope everyone is doing well. Okay. I just want to make sure that is working and give me just a second. Make sure that that the audio, everything is working. How are you all? Those of you who are here live, thank you so much for being here. I am really excited for us to get started and to be able to chat. Um, so the other day I talked about completing your college application. That was last week, and that it's not too late. Although the early admission is, the early admission and early decision deadlines, a lot of them have passed, if not all of them at this point. But we're not too late for you to still complete applications. We've got rolling admission, which is that those application decisions are going to be processed as the applications come in. We also have regular admission where there might be deadlines that are in December, December 1st, middle of December, even into January a little bit. So want to make sure that you all have everything that you need as far as letters of recommendation. That's a really big part of the process for many, many schools. And so a lot of schools have that holistic review. But one of the things I want to make sure that you know is how to ask for letters of recommendation. So the very first thing that I want you to do is if you are not if you are in a grade lower than than a senior and watching this is a great time for you to develop some really positive relationships with teachers, with counselors, with other people. Not just for the purpose of saying, "Yep, I want you to write my letter of recommendation in a couple years, and I want to make sure it's a good one," but also that you really are getting to know the different faculty and staff and those relationships. And as you get to know people, that can make a big difference in your high school experience. So the first thing that you want to do when you figure out who you want to write your letter of recommendation, you want to ask them in advance, at least 2 weeks ahead of time. So your timeline is a minimum of 2 weeks prior to that college application deadline. Your counselors, your teachers, they are very, very busy, and they have a lot of people who are going to be asking questions for and asking them to look at the writing a letter for them. And so if you wait until a week before your letter is going to be due, they might not have time. They might end up saying, "No, I don't have time. I have too many other letters that are due on that same date. That's not something that I can look at." The other thing that they might end up doing is they could look at how they could end up saying, "You know what? I can write you a letter, but it's not going to be a great one. I don't have time to really customize it to you as an individual student." And that's one of the biggest things that we want to make sure happens, is that that letter can be customized. So with your timeline, the first thing is with your timeline, you want to make sure that you have asked at least 2 weeks in advance, if not longer than that. Okay. Then the second thing that you want to ask with that timeline, you want to make sure that your recommender is going to write you a positive letter of recommendation, right? We want to make sure that the relationship that you have with them is something that is where they're going to be able to speak to your strengths and that they can write a positive letter. Now, there might be a neutral letter that they write if maybe they feel like they didn't know you as well, but that's why it's a good thing for you to be able to talk to them about making sure that you want a positive letter, and that is something. The last thing you want is a college to get something that's not going to showcase your qualities and abilities. Okay. So then the other piece of that individualized letter that I talked about is really making sure that you are providing details and information to your recommender about yourself, about the schools that you're applying to, about those deadlines, so that they can really make sure that they're writing the best possible letter. Now, your school might have a process where there's a brag sheet or a letter of recommendation request form that you have to fill out. With that letter, one of the things that sometimes happens, or with that brag sheet, is that you're being asked to include your positive characteristics or qualities. You're being asked to list your test scores. If that's something that you want included, you're being asked to talk about something that you're proud of, your strengths, maybe something that was a challenge or something that you learned while you were in high school. That gives the recommender an opportunity to talk about you as an individual student and be able to really share specific details. The other thing that that's going to allow is that's going to allow you to make sure that if there's something that you want the recommender to include, that you've done that. Maybe you want your counselor to include that you had a specific time where you wanted to take several different rigorous classes. And with the way the schedule worked out, maybe that's not something that worked out with your schedule because of the electives that you chose or something like that. As a counselor, that is something that your school counselor could address and say, you know what, despite Courtney, her schedule, and she's taking these rigorous classes, she actually had requested to take an additional rigorous course, and it didn't work out in her schedule. And so then the colleges know what your course selection was and what you were trying to make sure happened in your senior year. Then a really easy way to be able to let your recommender know about activities that you've been involved with is going to have, there might be a place on that brag sheet, but you also can give them a resume. And with that resume, one of the things that you can do is you can list not just the awards, the activities you were involved in, but is there something specific that you want that recommender to be able to talk about? Maybe you were part of the Beta Club or National Honor Society, and so there was a project that you helped to spearhead where you were able to really talk through, okay, these are the things that, I took the point on this project, and we were trying to collect supplies for, to give to the local family care center. And so we were doing a food drive, and that you were the point person for it, and you helped to raise you collected however many cans of food or whatever it might be, just the specifics of those opportunities for you. Okay. As a bonus tip, one other thing that I would suggest that you take a look at is writing a letter to your recommender. So one thing that you could do is you can have a cover letter, just like you're applying for a job, just like you are sending in, you would send in a cover letter as well as your resume, but you can put a lot of information into that letter, and you can use the same letter, change names and change things if there's something else that's relevant for each person. But, dear Miss Counts, thank you so much for being willing to write my letter of recommendation. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I've attached a copy of my resume and my brag sheet where you'll find more information. In my personal statement, I plan to highlight A, B, and C. If you could also discuss or touch on point B in the letter, I would greatly appreciate it, because I want to make sure that the admissions committee understands that. So those are some of the things that you can really focus on to make sure that you are getting those letters of recommendation. So you want to make sure your timeline is in a good place. You want to make sure you have that brag sheet completed. If your school doesn't have one, create your own, where you're just saying, okay, here are the things that I'm proud of. Ask your family for information or feedback. How would your family describe you? What are the things that they would say about your challenges? And then, so timeline, the brag sheet, and then that resume. If you want to dive deeper on this and go into more detail, I would love for you to send me an email at admin@confusedtoready.com and just put in the subject line deeper, and we can set up a free 15-minute coaching call to really talk about the college application, to talk about what you're doing, how you can put your best foot forward, those letters of recommendation. and also just making sure that you have everything that you need to be successful. If you're interested in that, send me that email, or you can message me on Facebook or Instagram at Confused to College Ready. And I look forward to talking with you more next time. Take care and have a great evening. Bye.